You're on.
What's up, everybody? Hey, it's Rob back here again, and we're gonna go in for another training. My team is freaking out because, like, literally, I don't know, 28 seconds before we're supposed to go live, my Apple Pen disconnects from my iPad, and so I unplug the iPad from the screen share and plug my pen in, and I'm gonna get everything resynced up, and they're freaking out like, what are you doing? We go live in now 15 seconds. And I was like, oh, we got to get the pen working. So hopefully the pen still works. Yep, the pen still works. All right. So we're gonna dive into this, and we're gonna have some fun. Let's see. We've got some folks here. Let me see if I can read some of the comments. Oh man, we got Tom here. Bam, we got Jonathan. We've got Mario. We've got Drew. We've got Eddie. We've got let's see. We got all sorts of people here. This is pretty cool. Welcome, guys. We're gonna dive into this, and we're gonna do another round. So you guys that are outside joining in via the live stream, you get to sit in on our team training here at FreedomSoft. And our objective and our goal is to continue to teach the team and train the team here on investing in real estate and creating financial freedom. And that's what these goals are about. And, you know, I wasn't originally going to open this up. I was just going to do a team training and teach my team how to invest in real estate, because investing in real estate and that knowledge changed my life. It can change your life too. And as we got thinking about it with our mission for FreedomSoft, we thought, you know, our mission is to help people create financial freedom through real estate investing and make that accessible to everyone. And so we thought, you know, in line with that mission, we should just open this up and make our trainings public and available. So we're pretty excited about that. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to dive in because what I want to do is kind of set the stage and help people understand how you think about investing in real estate. Most people don't invest in real estate because of why? Why do you guys think people don't invest in real estate?
Risk adverse.
Risk adverse. It's the number one reason. What's the number two reason that people don't invest in real estate?
Fear.
Fear and risk. I kind of put those two together. Yep, but you're on the right track.
Lack of money.
Lack of money. People are fearful, and therefore they think it's risky. Therefore they're fearful, or they lack the money that they believe they need to have in order to successfully invest in real estate. Guys, I'm going to just tell you, you don't need any money to invest in real estate. Everybody thinks, oh, now I have some money saved up, so now I should invest in real estate. You don't need money to invest in real estate. What do you need to invest in real estate? Knowledge. Simple. Like, simply put, you need knowledge to invest in real estate. Now, you can do it with money, and as you gain money, you can put money to work in real estate. You can get money out of a currency like cash, and you can put it into a hard asset like real estate, and that's investing. That's taking a certain currency, cash, what you earn from doing a job or active transactional income, putting it into real estate and investing it. And once you have the knowledge, the risk, the fear, all of the other stuff can go away. But there's one other component to it. You can make the risk, the fear go away with knowledge, but then you have to take action, and you have to take the right action. Because if you learn something and then take an action that disregards what you learned, you can put yourself right back into the position of risk. And that doesn't make any sense. So learn it, take action, but then take action based on what you learned. Don't disregard the knowledge and then do something stupid. There's no reason to do something stupid with investing in real estate. It's very mathematical, very mechanical. It's pretty simple to figure out how to do it and how to do it well. So what I want to do is talk about three things. Most people that we talk to on a regular basis through our support team at FreedomSoft, our success team, from our marketing and all of those things, people tell us that there's 3 reasons that they don't invest in real estate. We just talked about the main reasons: risk, fear, and a lack of knowledge and money. But people tell us that it's leads, time, and money. They tell us they don't have leads, don't know how to get leads. They tell us they don't have time and can't make the time. That's a priority issue. That's not a reality. If you want it, you'll figure out how to make the time. And people say they don't have the money, which we've already talked about. The time thing, I can just tell you guys like directly. And my daughter's sitting in this room, so she can attest to this. Years ago, when I decided I wanted to learn how to invest in real estate, I'd come home from work and I would spend hours going through trainings, and I would invest in my education. I'd travel to events, and I would plug in and I would learn and I would consume, and then I would go quickly take action. So acquire the knowledge and then take the action. Okay, so let's talk about some of the knowledge component, and we're going to dive into this. I want to open us with this first. From last week, we talked about the current state of the real estate market, right? And the market's high. The market is hyper competitive. The market is increasing irrationally. Do we remember the last time this happened? Some of you are too young. Some of you might remember it. It happened back in 05, 06. The market was screaming up, and then the market came to an irrational peak and it crashed. Now, there are different factors, so we're not going to get into a market discussion on this training, but I want you guys to understand that the market goes through cycles, and we talked about this last week. The market is at a peak today. I'm not saying that it's at the peak and going down. I'm saying that it's up, it's irrational. When you look at rents compared to price, they don't make sense. It doesn't make sense in many, many markets. Now, there are some markets where it still makes sense. Some markets you can still buy the price low enough and rent is reasonable enough that the math makes sense. People have to be able to afford to pay the rent in order to live in the house, right? And the investor has to be able to afford to buy the house, service the debt, or pay cash if you have the cash, but service the debt off of the rents. And if the prices are too high, you can't service the debt. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So irrational price increases with rents that haven't kept up in many markets make real estate investing not work in some areas. There are areas that it does still work. So here's what I want to talk about. First, I want to ask this question: what questions pop up from last week? Anything from the team here, local, or anybody that's joined us externally? Let me just see if there's any burning question that popped up from last week that I can answer. And if there isn't, that's okay. But I want to at least open the discussion. Any thoughts? It's okay if you don't.
There were a few thoughts last week around marketing strategies.
Okay.
So I don't know if you just want to touch base on that.
I don't want to go into marketing yet, because I don't think anybody's ready to go get a lead and have a negotiation, because I don't know if anybody can define exactly what a good real estate deal is. Can anybody define exactly what a good real estate deal is? And really confidently say, if I found this deal, I would do that deal. Probably not. Okay. So, and for folks just checking in on the live stream or later watching this on the recording, that is the question I want you to ask yourself. Can you define what a deal is for you? Can you define what a deal is for you? Because what a deal is for me may be different than what a deal is for you. What a deal is for buyers that I've flipped deals to for years is different than, their definition is different than my definition. So the first thing you have to do is figure out what is a deal. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to talk about bringing in that component of risk and return. Okay. So if we define a deal, how many of you guys had the chance to go look at freedomsoft.com/napkin? How many of you guys have watched that video? So if you haven't watched that video, go to freedomsoft.com/napkin, because I talk about the difference between a short-term real estate investment and a long-term real estate investment. Fundamentally different in how you analyze it, fundamentally different in what it produces for you, fundamentally different in why you want one or the other. Short-term creates cash, long-term creates cash flow, okay? Short-term is transactional, long-term is more passive, residual, and it builds wealth, okay? You can make cash and make money short-term, you can build wealth long-term. So my suggestion to everybody here is be thinking about how to build your long-term wealth, and then add and layer knowledge on to say, okay, how do I create some cash along the way? But have the objective and the goal first to create passive income. I talked last time we talked about having little milestone goals, right? Get your first $1,000 a month in passive income. Okay, $1,000 a month in passive income that's coming in, whether you're working or not, pays for, pays off credit cards, pays for a nice vacation, pays for, puts money into a retirement account, self-direct that retirement account back into real estate. Like, start to use little incremental things to change the trajectory of your financial life that allows you to keep the active income coming in, right, while you're building the passive component. So let's talk about how we reduce the risk. Here's what I look for. If I'm looking for in a city somewhere and I want to invest in real estate somewhere, and I'm looking at a certain particular geographic location, I want to ask myself, where should I be investing? Okay, where should I be investing? And so the answer, or the question, where should I be investing, is local market geographic related. We've already asked the question, where, sort of nationally, like what market do I want to go into? Now we're going to ask the question, where inside of that market? And I'm not somebody that, I don't want to be the pioneer in an area. Okay, the data in a market will tell you where you should be investing. And what do you think that data is that tells you that? What do you think it is that shows you where geographically inside any market? Like, let's pick Denver, let's pick Albuquerque, let's pick Memphis, Indianapolis, Minneapolis, Tampa. Pick a city. What do you think it is that shows you geographically where to invest in real estate?
Rising population.
Okay, rising population. Construction.
Rent prices.
Rent prices. Okay, all good ideas, all good suggestions. The number one thing that I look at is, where are investors already buying? Where are most of the transactions already happening? So I'll go look and I'll ask, over the last 6 months in this city that I know nothing about, where are investors buying? And then I want to ask the question, are they buying and holding long term, or are they buying and flipping short term? Is it a short term market, or is it a long term play? Does that make sense? So the first question that I ask is, where are investors already buying? So all of you guys know this, or most of you that are on the product or support and success and marketing side of FreedomSoft know this. You can go into FreedomSoft's lead finder and you can do searches to say, hey, show me all of the absentee owners that bought a house in this geography, in this area, in the last 6 months. So that shows you where the active activity in a market is. Okay, then the rest of the questions are good questions to ask, right? So if we know where the investors are buying, then we got to understand, is it a short-term deal or a long-term deal that they're mostly buying? Because then we want to figure out how to price in our risk. Okay, if risk is the deal, if risk is the thing, we got to figure out how to price in risk into our investments. So I'm going to unplug this thing again and plug in my pen, and I'm going to send a support ticket to Apple and say, your pens don't work very well. And this is kind of ridiculous, but that's okay. Let's get this thing back. Okay, there we go. Now the pen is connected again. Now let's go ahead and get my screen share, because what we're going to do is we're going to put some numbers down on a screen share. So let's see here. Go back to, got to share this iPad back. And do you see it? Do you see the iPad, or do I need to share it again?
You need to share it.
Yeah. All right, there it's coming. There we go. See it now?
Not yet.
Let's see. All right, hang tight 1 second. Share screen. Yes. Window, iPad, share. All right.
Yeah.
I think we're back. Okay, we're back. Here's what I want you guys to think about geographically. I want you to think about neighborhood grades. So if you understand where investors are buying first, then ask yourself, what type of a neighborhood is this? Okay. And so neighborhood grades are A, B, C, D, A, B, C, D, and what I call war zones. Okay. So your A neighborhood, and here's how we're gonna classify this. Okay. We're gonna look at owner, occupants, and we're gonna look at renters. Okay. And in an A neighborhood, you have 95% owner occupied, and you have 5% tenant occupied houses. This is where this is the suburbs. This is where almost everybody in the neighborhood owns their own house. A couple of renters. Generally, those renters are there because the white collar professional got a job transfer out of state. They haven't sold their house yet, so they put it on the market to rent it, right? That's the rentals in an A neighborhood. A B neighborhood is 80% owners and 20% renters. So you can see that the number of renters is coming up in a B neighborhood. Still, a B neighborhood is a nice middle class, upper middle class, good neighborhood that we would all live in. We would all live in an A neighborhood. We would all live in a B neighborhood. Nothing wrong with it, right? You're going to drive down the street of a B neighborhood. You're going to see well-kept yards. You're going to see nice cars that are in the driveway. You're going to see nice cars that are leased in the driveway. You're going to see nice cars that are financed in the driveway. You're going to see a lot of toys that have been bought on credit cards in the driveway. You're going to see people in B neighborhoods that are swimming in debt. Okay? That's just the American way. But it's also why you can find deals in B neighborhoods. You can find deals in A neighborhoods too, often for different reasons and often different strategies in A neighborhoods. But B neighborhoods are oftentimes debt related. Not always, but debt related. There's a financial squeeze that is put on an owner in a B neighborhood that creates motivation. Now, a C neighborhood is 50-50. 50% owner occupied, 50% rentals. Okay, good mix. You're gonna drive down the C neighborhood street, and you're gonna see nice cars, leased cars. You're also gonna see nice, well-kept yards right next to a beater yard. Tall grass, not well kept. House needs to be painted. Bad roof. You're gonna see a very eclectic look as you drive down the street. And you can do this with Google Maps. Like you can go in and you can say, okay, I'm interested in Indianapolis, Indiana. Go figure out where the investors are buying, like what zip codes are they buying in, and go put yourself on Google Maps right in the middle of that area and start walking down the street and look to both sides. You're going to start to see the things that I'm describing. Okay, so now a D neighborhood, we're gonna flip, and it's 20% owner occupied and 80% renters. It's just the opposite of the A and B neighborhood side, down to the D. So 20% own, 80% are renters. Where do you think investors are typically buying?
C and D.
C and D. Yep. Where do you think investors that are doing short-term, let's say fix and flip deals, are buying?
Would it be C and B maybe?
Mostly B neighborhoods. Mostly B neighborhoods, because you can find the deals that have some distress. Oftentimes it's a personal distress that then creates some property distress. But B neighborhoods are where you can buy it, fix it, and flip it, sell it to an owner occupant. Because look, 80% of the people there own their house. So B neighborhoods and up, your B plus, A minus, right? That's where your short-term, your fix and flip deals generally happen. It's where you can make the margins, the profits. It's where the buyers are. That doesn't mean that you can't kind of come down here into the C neighborhoods, but you have to be selective. You've got to be selective, because you've got to sell to an owner occupant that wants to live with 50-50 owners and tenants. I've flipped hundreds of houses in C neighborhoods. So don't get the idea that you can't flip there, but you need to understand the math better. And I want to talk about supply and demand in a minute, because we're gonna avoid becoming an accidental landlord. Okay, so we get down to the C neighborhoods, down into the D neighborhoods, and what do you think happens in the C neighborhoods? We're gonna hit the buy and holds. Okay, C's down to the D's are where most of the buy and holds happen. Now there are the investors that own and buy and do deals in war zones. War zones are 5% owners, 95% renters. Okay, war zones have a lot of vacant, abandoned houses, a lot of vacant lots. Like Denver, we don't have war zones in Denver. There are many cities that don't have war zones. We have some D neighborhoods that are just, 80% renters, 20% owners. The old saying, drive it like it's a rental. When you're living in a rental, sometimes tenants drive it like it's a rental, and therefore we as investors, we need to think about that, and we need to prepare for that. We need to plan for that, because when people move out, you do have to go in sometimes and pretty it back up and clean it back up and fix the wall and fix the sink and those things. I'm going to tell you guys all, don't invest, don't buy and hold in a war zone, and don't try to fix and flip in a war zone. It ain't going to work. Okay, but don't try to buy and hold in a war zone. Stay out of the war zones. Now, that doesn't mean if you're a wholesaler, you can wholesale in war zones if you have investors that love it. And there are some guys, and I know them, that love buying in war zones because they can buy them super cheap. They understand how to make money renting in that environment, and they're good at it. And they don't over improve the property. They understand the customer that's going to live there, and they serve them a safe, functional house with no frills, right? If you're going to wholesale, you can wholesale in a war zone, but my suggestion to you is don't buy and hold there. So figure out what's happening and what kind of a neighborhood you're in. Are you in A, B, C, D, or a war zone? Okay. Now I want to talk about supply and demand. And while I'm talking about this, I'm going to sync you can change that because I'm going to come back to it in a minute. I got to sync my Apple Pen again. Thanks again, Apple. Holy crap. I like Apple except for this garbage. All right, there we go. It's writing again. Now we just have to display it. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about supply and demand, and we're going to talk about how do you figure out how does the supply and demand work. And so give me 1 second, and I'm going to share this because I want to draw this down for you guys.
Hey, Rob, while you're doing that, question: where's most of the wholesaling happening?
Yeah, good.
Neighborhood grades.
Yep, good. Let me pop back up to my notes here. Most of the wholesaling is happening in your C to D plus neighborhoods. There's a lot. I should caveat that. There's a lot in the B minus to D plus. So C is your sweet spot. That's where you're going to find most investors are buying, because there's a good mix of inventory available and activity for exit strategy. Okay, you got to have both. As an investor, if you don't understand your exit strategy or your exit strategy options going in, you lose, and that's not a good feeling. And so let me get this sharing back here. So yeah, your B to B minus down to your D plus is where the majority of the wholesaling happens. Does that make sense?
Yep. I'm going to work in one more. How do you find the data to know the ratio of owners versus rent?
Yeah. So using FreedomSoft, you can go into Lead Finder, FreedomSoft's Lead Finder tool. Go to marketing down to Lead Finder and go do a search for a city that you're interested in, a geography, a zip code, and search for the absentee owners of single family houses who purchased in the last 6 months. Okay, those are your investors. Absentee owners, they don't live there, so that's an investor. Single family house, we're trying to figure out the neighborhood. So we're looking at the house activity, what's happening with the single family houses, and then in the last 6 months, because real estate is cyclical, right? What was happening a year ago is different than today, and so that's how you do it. Look at that those ratios of absentee in the last 6 months. That's going to give you the activity, and then finding the ratio of owner occupied to absentee. Just go into your zip code and search all owner occupied properties. FreedomSoft's Lead Finder is going to give you a number. Then search all absentee owned in that zip code, and it's going to give you a number, and there's your ratio. Because you could say, show me all absentee and owner occupied. That's the total number of properties available in that area, in that geographical search. And then you want to see, now filter it, show me only the owner occupied, show me only the absentee, and that's your ratio. It's really simple to figure this stuff out. And as you get deeper into it, we're going to keep this as the kind of the high level. You get deeper into it, then you go and you look at crime reports. You can go to Trulia.com and look at Trulia's crime report, and you're going to see the types of crimes vary by neighborhood type, right? You're going to see a car theft, a break-in in your B and your A neighborhoods. You're going to see car break-ins. You're going to see, as you go down neighborhood grades, you're going to see an escalation in violent crime as you go down in neighborhood grade. So you just have to understand the type of tenant or the type of neighborhood you're dealing with. People are fearful to invest in real estate because they're afraid to manage the properties. Well, what are we going to do to manage the properties? Hire someone, right? Hire someone. So guess what? It costs you 8, 9, 10% to hire a good manager. Manage the manager, right? Your job as the investor is to continue building your portfolio. It's not to manage the portfolio that you have. Or I shouldn't say that it's not to manage the portfolio you have. You want to manage the portfolio that you have, but to be the property manager is not the best use of your time. Your time is much better spent elsewhere. So here's what we're going to then look at inside of a neighborhood, and I'm going to tell you how you get this information. We're going to go back and we're going to look at supply and demand. Okay, supply and demand. And we want to look at the number of listed properties available.
You got to share your screen.
Oh, I got to share my screen. All right. Let's share the screen. So here's how you figure this out. You got the screen there?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Here's how you figure this out. In that geographic area, your local real estate agent in the MLS, the multiple listing service, is going to be able to tell you, and you can generally go on realtor.com and look how many houses are listed for sale. So you want to understand the number of listed houses. Okay, what is the number of listed houses in an area? That is the supply. So the number of listed houses, oh my gosh, my pen just did it again. I don't know how else to do this. I'm just gonna cut it. The number of listed houses out of the MLS, or go to realtor.com and just count them. It's the total aggregate number. The number of listed houses is your supply. The number of pending houses, pending, under contract, is the what?
Demand.
The demand. What do you think the third thing is? What do you think the third thing is? Anybody have an idea? The third thing is the number of sold houses. Sold's established price. So think about it, and I want to come back and draw this onto my screen here, because I want you guys to get how this works. If you get it, you're never going to end up being an accidental landlord, owning something you don't want to own. You're going to be able to make intelligent decisions on this stuff. So share the screen again. All right, there we go. Listed houses. And so the number of pending sales and the number of solds. So sold's established price. Okay, pending sales is, what did we say that was? The demand. And listed houses is the supply. So what if we have in a zip code, what if we only have 5 houses listed? What if we have 12 houses pending? And what if in the last 90 days we have 6 that sold? What kind of a market do you think we're in?
Seller's market.
Okay, seller's market. What do we so is supply or demand higher? Is supply or demand higher?
Demand is higher.
Demand is higher.
Yeah.
Yep. So demand is higher, which makes it a seller's market because the seller can establish their price, right? So if I'm an investor and I'm going to go into that area and I'm going to fix and flip, and let's say that we're in a B neighborhood, is there a pretty good chance that I can fix and flip in that neighborhood? Yeah, because demand is greater than supply. Does that make sense? So how do I get this? I look at the local multiple listing service and just look at the aggregate data. This tells me what's going on in the area. So let's take a different one now. We've got the listed, we've got the pending, and we've got the sold. And let's do it kind of the opposite. Okay, let's say that our supply is 17 houses listed in this area. Let's say that pending sales are 3, and let's say that in the last 90 days, 8 have sold. Buyer's market, seller's market. What do you think we have here? Is supply or demand greater? Supply is greater. Supply is clearly greater. So if you go in and fix and flip in this geography, what do you think you have to do? You have to be the nicest house at the cheapest price. So what do you have to do? You've got to buy low. You got to buy cheap. If you're going to go into this geography, this neighborhood, this area where supply is high and demand is lower, you got to be the nicest house at the cheapest price if you're going to fix and flip. But what else could you do? You can buy and hold. This is the neighborhood where people become accidental landlords. When they go into this area and think, oh, I got this great deal, I'm going to fix it up and I'm going to flip it. But then they skimp on the fix up. They didn't buy it quite as cheap as they wanted to. They put it on the market. It doesn't sell because there's 17 other properties available. And then what do? They lower their price. They lower their price. They lower their price. And pretty soon they're not making any money because their cost of holding keeps increasing. Their price comes down, and pretty soon all the profit is squeezed out of the deal. How do we avoid this? How do we avoid it? Understand the geography you're buying in before you buy.
So don't get into it?
Or plan on getting into it for what? Long-term hold, cash flow. Don't anticipate the wrong exit strategy, right? If you go in and expect a certain exit strategy that just doesn't work in the area, you're going to lose. Okay. So here's what I want to talk about then.
Hey Rob, real quick, tell Darren we're live.
What's that?
Tell Darren we're live.
Hey Darren, we're live.
That's all. Back to where you're going.
All right, back to business. Back to business. Okay, here's what I want to do. Does this make any sense to you guys?
Yeah.
Okay. This is the stuff that people don't often talk about. This is the stuff that I look at every single time I go into a new market. I understand exactly what neighborhoods I'm buying in. I understand exactly my exit strategies. I understand exactly what my risks are. My risks here are in understanding supply and demand, right? Once I understand it, my risk goes way down. So the knowledge and the things we're talking about right now take the risk out of it. How many people, if they were going to go do a short-term fix and flip today, would be concerned and nervous about, am I going to sell it? Am I going to get out of this deal in time at the right price? I just showed you how to take that risk way out of the equation. Understanding listed, pending, and sold. Okay. Now we're not going to do a whole comps, how we do comps here. Learning how to do comps is another whole training and conversation. But before you even do the comps, you got to understand the market geography and exit strategy. Okay, because it doesn't even make sense to worry about the comps if the exit strategy is wrong. Exit strategy first. So now let's do this. Let's take an example property, because now we're in an area, we're going to build our wealth. And I said last week, there are two things in the current market condition that we want to do. We want to buy and hold. Okay. Now, if you're a wholesaler listening to this, this training is giving you the mindset of an investor. This is what your buyers are thinking about, right? In today's market right now, buyers are thinking, I'll pay whatever just to get a deal. Like investors are getting crazy minds. Like it doesn't make sense what some of them are doing. So, but you want to understand how your buyers are thinking about these deals. So we're going to talk about buy and hold to build our wealth, or we're going to talk about a master lease. Because where prices are today, I want to either buy at a discount or buy on terms, or I want to control the cash flow. Okay. I want to buy at a discount or buy on terms. Why would I want to buy at a discount or buy on terms? So buy and hold, discount or terms. Why would I want to buy on at a discount or buy on terms? What am I doing when I do that?
Keeping control.
I'm keeping control. I'm reducing my risk. I'm reducing my risk. I'm maximizing my exit strategies, right? So the difference between buying at a discount is you're gonna pay cash, whether that's your cash or somebody else's cash. The transaction is going to close with cash, whether that's you're stroking a check for it, or whether you're bringing in private money, a bank, whether it's financed or cash. For our purposes here, I'm going to talk about cash being a finance transaction where the seller gets all of their money at closing. Okay. Now, there are important differences inside of transactions between, is the money coming from a hard money lender, a private money lender, or a traditional bank? Especially if you're a wholesaler, you have to understand where your buyer's money is coming from, because that'll blow up your deals. We're setting that aside right now, and we're saying, as the buyer, how do we need to think about this deal? Discount, if we're bringing funding to the table, our own cash or someone else's, and the seller's walking away with all of their money up front and we own it, I need a discount. That's just the bottom line. Terms would be, maybe the seller becomes the bank. Instead of me bringing in my own cash, private money, an outside lender, maybe the seller becomes the bank in the deal, and we just pay them over time. I can pay what? A higher price if the seller's willing to carry the financing than I can if I bring my own capital in. Does that make sense? Because what am I risking? If the seller is willing to carry it, what am I risking? I'm risking my time. I'm not risking my money, right? Now I may have to bring in a little bit of capital to fix up the property. I may have to do some other things, holding costs, closing costs. There might be some capital involved, but I can generally pay a higher price if I'm paying with terms. Master lease, let's just look at that. And a master lease is control. I like applying the master lease. It works on single family houses, but if I'm going to do a single family house deal, I'm going to typically try to buy with terms, i.e. Owner financing. I'm going to try to typically get the seller just to become the bank. Okay. A master lease, and I can do terms on a master lease as well. But if I'm buying a multi-unit or a bigger property, let's say that multi-unit, and let's just say that we've got a small apartment complex with, let's just say 40 units. Okay. Small apartment with 40 units. I could go in and let's say that the motivation of the seller is Joe recently passed away and Betty doesn't know how to or necessarily want to deal with it. And Joe's been sick for the last 3 years. And so the facility today is only 65% occupied. And it hasn't been well maintained. It hasn't been well managed. It hasn't been well leased up. So there are issues going on with the building, right? And so when I think exit strategy, when I have a single family house, who can I sell that to? I can sell that to a homeowner. I can sell that to an investor. My exit strategies are big and wide, right? When I have a multi-family unit or commercial property or anything else, who am I going to sell that to?
Investor.
I'm going to sell it to an investor, right? What does an investor always want?
Cash flow.
Great deal.
Cash flow. They want a great deal. They typically want a discount, right? So I'm going to look at the math on this, and let's just take a single family house. Okay. Here's how we're going to run the math. We're in a C neighborhood, and what we have is a 3-bedroom, 1 bath. Let's say it's 1,089 square feet, and there is a 1-car detached garage. Okay, typical C neighborhood deal, right? And let's say that this house rents for $800 a month. How much can I pay for this?
Depends on the returns that you want.
That's the right answer. It depends on the returns that you want. And so we talked about it last week. And in fact, I'm gonna go down here and then come back. I want to go A, B, C, D, and war zone. And I want to just show you the returns that I think you should target in each of these neighborhoods, or that investors in general are okay with in these. And then I'm going to show you why in a minute. So, and this is basically a cap rate calculation. Now, for those of you watching live, I understand cap rate is predominantly used for multifamily. I'm going to use it for single family because the math makes sense and it works, okay? A cap rate is a way to compare different types of assets together, because cap rate excludes debt service. And it gives you what's called a capitalization rate to look at a deal and estimate the return on investment of that deal itself. Okay, so cap rate is basically your net. You're going to take your net operating income. Okay, remember we talked about this last week. I want to show you guys. You have your gross rents. You have gross rent, and then you have what you call your TIM V. Okay, gross rent minus TIM V equals what? Your net rent or your net operating income. Does that make sense? So what we're going to do, and this is on an annualized basis. Your net operating income is always on an annualized basis. So we're gonna come back and we're gonna do the math here in a second with cap rate. And I'm going to show you the formula and how it works. But generally, in A neighborhoods, you're going to see people being willing to pay cap rates between 7 and 9. Okay, in B neighborhoods, you're going to generally see people be willing to be 8 to 10. In C neighborhoods, you're going to generally see people be 10 to 12. In D neighborhoods, you're going to generally see people be 14 to 16 plus. In war zones, you're going to see people be 20 plus, or they're not interested. Okay, so here are target cap rates for an area. Now, I will tell you, these are not hard and fast rules. These are my observations of what many investors will pay. I will tell you guys, I have stricter criteria for myself. Okay, I don't go into these areas. In fact, I don't have anything that I didn't buy at a cap rate in excess of probably about a 15 cap. And then I operate at about a 12 cap. And I'll explain what that means at some point. Don't worry about it. But the point is, I even buy better than this. Okay, but this is what a lot of investors will look at and look for. So we're going to come back here, $800 a month times 12. I'm going to pull out my calculator, and we're going to do the single family calculation this week. We're going to look at our terms deal to kick off next week because we're coming up on an hour, and I want to get through this. So times 12 months equals what's that? 9,600.
Yes.
800 times 12. $9,600 in gross rent. Okay. Now we have to take out, what do we have to take out? Our operating costs, right? So we're going to take now our $9,600 in operating costs minus Tim V, taxes, insurance, maintenance, management, and vacancy. Okay. And oftentimes, until you run the math in a particular city, you can often estimate that for quick and dirty calculations around 30%. Some areas have county taxes, city taxes, and then they layer on some other stuff. It might be 35%. Some areas, if you know you're in a rougher area, you might go 35 to 40% because you know your vacancies are going to be a little bit higher. You're going to turn a tenant every year. Okay, but generally this is what it is. So 9,600 times 0.7, going to take out that 30%, equals 6,720 annual NOI, net operating income. So now the question is, what can I pay? Here's what I've got to do. I've got to look over here and say, well, I know that I'm in a C neighborhood, and I want to try to buy this as cheap as I can. Let's just target a 12 cap right out of the gates. So I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to take this 6,720, and I'm going to divide it by 0.12. Divided by 0.12. That's what, $56,000. Okay, all in, I can be all in on this deal. If I pay cash for this deal, I can be all in at $56,000, which means I then have to do what? I have to subtract repairs. I have to subtract my repairs in order to get what? My maximum allowable offer. Equals 56,000 minus repairs. And let's say our repairs in this case are 15 grand. So I'm going to subtract $15,000. If I want my money to perform at 12% ROI, 12% interest paid back to me based on the cash flow, I can pay $41,000 for that property. Okay. Now, if I'm a wholesaler, which with FreedomSoft, many of our customers wholesale, many of our customers buy and hold, many of our customers fix and flip. If I'm a wholesaler, what am I going to do with that maximum allowable offer? I'm going to buy it cheaper than that, right? That's how I create my margin, because I know that my buyers are going to pay $41,000. If I buy it and sell it to them, they'll pay $41,000. If they pay $41,000, put $15,000 into it, are all in at 56, they have a 12% ROI or a 12 cap. Does that make sense? So we're gonna look at the analysis of this 40 unit, and we're gonna say that it's 40 units times $800 a month equals gross rent of $32,000 a month. We're going to look at that deal next week, because on that 40 unit, if you're going to do a master lease type of an offer, what can you offer the seller? That's what we're going to answer next week. I wanted you guys to see the math on the single family home. We're going to look at the multifamily next week to figure out what to pay, how to price it. But what we've done today is an exercise in reducing risk. We understand how to think about a geography. We understand how to think about exit strategy. We understand supply and demand. We understand how not to become an accidental landlord, right? And then we start to ask ourselves, based on those neighborhood grades, what should I pay? Okay. If I'm in a higher neighborhood grade, I can pay a little bit more. If I'm in a lower neighborhood grade, I pay a little bit less. Why would that be? Why do you think that would be? You're pricing risk, right? You're adjusting for the risk of a lower neighborhood grade with likely some higher crime, tenants that maybe don't keep the property as well while they live there, which means you have to come in and put $1,500 into cleaning it, painting it, and maybe some new carpet when they move out, right? And the more often tenants move out, the more you have to do that, the better cash flow you need. Okay, so we can talk about this all-in number that I'm showing you here on the single family house, and then what we're going to do is we're going to come back and we're going to say, okay, I know what I can pay now. Now, how should I fund it? If I know I can pay $41,000, how should I fund it? And the key to funding it is knowing what you're trying to accomplish. Knowing what you're trying to accomplish is, what is the minimum cash flow, like not a ROI. Real estate investors make mistakes when they chase ROI. Don't chase percentages. Chase real dollars. Real dollars are $250 minimum per month in your pocket every month, after all expenses are paid, including maintenance, management, vacancy coverage, taxes, and insurance. Tim V. I said those in the wrong order because I was going to say mostly maintenance. Like, even after you pay to fix up the house every time a tenant moves out, you're still putting a net $250 a month cash flow in your pocket. Okay? That's how you get this to making the numbers work. If you have a floor of 250 and then you have a deal that operates a little bit less, maybe it only operates for some reason at $100 because something happened. You know, $150 a month times 12, $1,800 went into the deal this year. You had budgeted some maintenance, it went over, or vacancy increased, or something happened, and your $250 net that you demanded only turned out to be $150. Guess what? You're still okay. You're still okay, right? And that's what we're doing, pricing risk. Let me open it up to quick questions. We've got just a couple minutes left, and go from there.
From the internal team, are C neighborhoods riskier in the event of a crash?
Are C neighborhoods riskier in the event of a crash? Not really. Not really. And the reason for that is in the last 3 housing market crashes, it was always the people with the most debt that got hit the hardest. And it was the people with the bigger paying jobs that had increased their lifestyle to catch up to their income that got hit the hardest. So B neighborhoods in the last crash got hit arguably the toughest. C neighborhoods are generally more blue collar neighborhoods. And my portfolio, I saw rents rise and not only my portfolio in the last crash, but in the last 3 housing market crashes. If you were in the bread and butter, blue collar, working class neighborhoods as an investor, rents generally rose even in the crash. What else you got, Mike?
There's only a couple in here. Let's wrap up with this. You were talking about property managers a while ago. Where do you go to find a good one?
Yeah, property managers are.
That's a key piece to the equation here.
Yeah, it's a totally key piece. If you don't want to self-manage it, which I don't live anywhere near anything that I own, so I don't want to self-manage any of it personally. Finding good managers is an exercise in interview process. I've got a really good interview checklist that I go through with my property managers. I'll share that with everybody at some point and just give it to you. But it's interview, and the interview questions that we have is simply based on experience and finding people. You always are going to have to manage the manager, right? It's just the way it is. But when you learn how to find the right team initially, and I'll just say this, one of the things that I look for is a property management company that also does rehabs. If I can find not the biggest in the area, but not the smallest mom and pop that just manages properties, find somebody in that sweet spot middle that manages properties but also does rehabs for investors. Now I know I've got a good go-to to help me out of a jam if I need to repair or fix something up. It's not that I always use them because they're not always the cheapest, but I've got an easy out if I need it. But I'll share that checklist at some point because it'll help you guys all. What else? Do we have anything else? Any questions from the team here?
Let's wrap it up.
All right.
Trevor's got one.
Do I use this cap rate all the time? Like cap rate formula rather, right? I determine the cap rate that I want as a buy and hold.
Yep.
And then I can take that and apply it when I'm looking at any property.
Yes, if you're going to buy and hold. Yep, and that's the key thing. And I go through this math in a lot more detail at freedomsoft.com/napkin. And you'll see how to go through the math for both a short-term and a long-term deal. But yeah, always use the math. Understanding this math also allows you to go look at what other investors are paying in an area and reverse engineer it and say, what are they buying? Like, what cap rate are they targeting? Right? You can go in and you can estimate the rents in an area. You can see what they paid for the property. You don't necessarily know how much money they're putting into the repairs or the fix up unless you're in an area where investors are buying already fixed up properties, known as a turnkey. It's already been bought by an investor, fixed up, tenants been moved in, and they're selling it to a passive investor that just wants a turnkey, ready to go, cash flowing house. If that's the case, you know that their repair costs were zero. You can reverse engineer and figure out what cap rate are they willing to pay. So there's that question of estimating the repairs if you don't know that, and that'll get you a nice little range.
I've got a couple I'll carry over to next week, but Rob, on the way out from Randy, where in the world can you find a house for 50 grand?
All over the country. You just have, there's markets all over the country. Just go start poking around in the Midwest. Go start poking around in the Rust Belt. Go start poking around in the South. You can do exactly this math today in the current state of the market. All day, every day. You just have to be in the right market to do it. So start poking around. Anything else?
Carry a few over to next week.
All right. Awesome. Well, guys, that's a wrap. I hope this was helpful.
Training next week.
Training next week. We're going to do the same thing. Same place, same time, same bat channel, right? That's what I'm supposed to say?
Yep.
All right. And watch out, guys, for the email and the notification. We'll see you guys next week. See ya.